Hello guys, welcome to Anna Swift TV. Our story starts off with a boy, Yuki, running around the field. He explains that the VR MMO experience became advanced to the point that they could feel all sensory activities that happen in the game. But when it got to that point, the gaming community disliked it. They think that games should be an escape from reality and real-world problems should never be implemented into their gameplay. VR developers stopped making VR games, leading to the genre to decline. Yuki tells his teacher that he's not sure what he wants to do in the future. The teacher asks him if he wants to talk about what happened in his freshman year. Yuki sighs. The teacher tells him he's brave because in his shoes he probably wouldn't leave the house. He says he admires him since he's been coming to school every day because what he did was the most embarrassing thing he has ever seen. Yuki walks, watching the other students run on the field. One of the runners sees him and comes over. He asks Yuki if he feels better and offers to go to the gym with him. Yuki rejects the offer, telling him he's going to go home and play some games. While walking home, two boys swindle Yuki's money. He continues his way to the game store and orders a game, but he's a little short because he gave away his money. The store owner tells him he's screwed because he can't get the game. While walking, he sees another gaming store. He goes in and finds a white-haired lady, Kisaragi. He asks her for the game and she laughs at him. She tells him the franchise is dead because the creators keep putting out sequels with little changes. He thinks about it and agrees. Realizing she doesn't have the game, he walks away. She tells him she has the game and hands it to him. He gives her his money but realizes it's the wrong game. She cashes the money in the register. He asks for his money back. She tells him it has 18+ content and she is willing to play with him. Losing to the power of horniness, he decides to give the game a try. He returns home and walks in on his sister in the bathroom. They stare awkwardly at each other, then she tells him to close the door. He prepares to play the game and decides that if it sucks, no matter how much Kisaragi jiggles, he's going to return it. The game begins with an angel telling him he needs to leave the city and head to Castle Flora. He wakes up in a room, then opens the window. He realizes he can feel the wind and even the handle feels realistic. A girl calls at the door, asking him if he's there. He hits a chair and realizes that it hurt. The girl opens the door, hitting him on the head. He admires the realistic character design, then quickly checks if he's still in a game, making sure he hasn't been isekai. The girl, Alicia, tells him they have been friends for years, and asks him to help with the apple harvest. Her brother, Martin, then walks in and gives him an apple. He smells and tastes the apple. Alicia takes out a knife and cuts it for him. He remembers the mission the angel gave him. He asks the sibling how to get to Castle Flora. They begin to freak out and ask if he's crazy. They tell him to never mention such foolishness again. He decides to leave and find out on his own. Martin tackles him to the wall and holds him back, refusing to see his friend die. He tells Yuki that this kingdom is surrounded by a wall to protect them from monsters and no one is allowed to enter or leave. Yuki decides that he will leave anyway. Martin challenges him to a fight and he tells Martin to bring it on. Martin beats his ass. He asks Martin what kind of a friend does this. He reminds him of a promise they swore under a tree. Yuki tells him he doesn't care about a fake backstory and gets punched again. Alicia says violence isn't the answer after he got his ass beat. Martin asks him how he's gonna beat a goblin when he can't even beat him. Yuki says he takes enough shit in his real life so he's not taking it in-game. He gets up and tackles Martin to the floor. He begins to celebrate his win, then realizes that Martin isn't moving. He tells him to get up. He realizes that he deep-throated the knife when he fell. Alicia screams and cries over Martin. Yuki asks for healing herbs. She tells him that healing herbs doesn't work on a body. She says Martin was just trying to help, so why did he do it? Yuki runs away with Alicia chasing close behind him. He escapes her in an alleyway and decides he's going to start the game over. He's suddenly confronted by Kisaragi. She tells him she's a fairy that is here to help him, then asks if he's finished helping his friends pick apples. He tells her something bad happened. She checks his title and it turns out to be the best friend smoker. She says it's game over for him. He tells her it was an accident and asked how to restart. She tells him it's impossible to restart because the game is based on reality. He asks for his money back. She tells him it's no refunds, but there may be another player that can help him since this player also smoked his friend. The public looks for Yuki and he gains a wanted poster. They go to a store to change his clothes. He picks a clothes for 15 gold, but since he's a criminal, the owner charges him 25 gold instead. They walk through an alley when someone creepily calls Yuki. Alicia stands behind them with a look on her face. She walks towards them, telling him he can't hide from her. He tells her it's an accident. She says she now realizes that she behaved foolishly and she really loves him more than anything. He sighs in relief. She tells him to go with her and be reunited in heaven. She pulls out a knife, and the crazy bit yandere tries to smoke him. He dodges and asks for advice from Kisaragi. She tells him he's screwed and should run. He runs away as the crazed yandere chases him. He escapes and is complimented on how fast he ran. His title updates to Smoker on the Run. Feeling tired, he decides to log off for the day, but the log off button doesn't appear. Kisaragi tells him the game doesn't allow you to log out during combat. Alicia comes out of the woods and cuts his arm. Yuki cries that the pain feels real. She prepares to smoke Yuki. But Kisaragi stops her by punching her in the eyes. She tells Yuki to run while she holds her off. Yuki logs out and goes to bed. In the morning Yuki goes to school. His friend asks him how the game is going. Yuki tells him it's shit. At home, Yuki's sister comes to his room and tells him to not be too loud tonight because she needs sleep. She tells him that gaming is not a hobby and to do something worthwhile like tracks. He tells her he likes playing games and she leaves slamming the door. In the game Yuki finds himself still injured. He checks his pockets and finds herbs but he doesn't know how to activate it. He curses the plant and asks it to work. A fat drunk, Genji, walks behind him. Yuki tells him he needs his help on how to play the game. He rubs the herbs on his cut and tells him it takes 2 to 4 days to heal. They go to a casino and drink together. Genji asks how he can help. Yuki tells him he smoked his friend and needs help. Genji suddenly starts talking to no one and asks them to leave him alone. Yuki asks who he's talking to and Genji tells him he will see soon. Genji tells him he strangled his friends for the fun of it. Yuki asks how he did it since they are so strong. He tells Yuki their physical stats are transferred into the game when they enter so it was easy for him. Yuki says that the game is impossible to beat. Genji tells a story of the one person who ever beat it. A man who gained the title Kamui, the eternally invisible. Genji shows his title. Heartless and inhuman monster, even though the worst thing he ever did in real life was not show up to work. Yuki asks how he fixes this. Genji gets up and tells everyone to get the guards because he caught the best friend smoker. Yuki asks why he would do this. Genji tells him not to mess up the interrogation. The guards come in to arrest Yuki. He tries to run but Genji stopped him and then asks for the reward money. The guards give Genji the money and bring Yuki to prison. The crowds begin to throw stones and insults at him. Yuki falls to the floor then demand they release him because he's the hero destined to save the city. The guard tells him that many people have tried to plead insanity before so it won't work. Yuki looks up and sees Alicia then begs the guard to hurry up and take him to prison. In prison, Yuki sits on the bed. He tries to log out but he can't while he's in prison. He begins to feel hungry and curses the game for that feature. He then goes to pee when the ghost of Martin suddenly comes behind him. Martin asks him why he did it. Yuki runs away and apologizes. He doesn't believe Yuki and tells him to tell him the words of his promise and he will be forgiven. Yuki says he doesn't know because he's new to the game. Martin tells him every day he will haunt him until he learns the promise then vomits blood on him. A girl, Mizurisa, comes to his cell and release him. She opens his cell and he follows her to a room with just one bed. A menu then comes up on Yuki's screen asking him if he wants to experience this event. He fights the horniness but loses and accepts the event. He lies on the bed and closes his eyes. She takes off her clothes then rubs his body. She tells him to open his eyes. He sees that she is in a BDSM costume and he is chained to the bed. She tells him if he breaks under torture he will be sent to prison but if he endures he's free to go. She takes out a knife. Yuki begins to scream while she moans from his pain. Kisaragi comes in. He begs for help. She begins to cheer him on and tell him to endure the torture. Mizurisa starts cutting off his legs. He panics and wets himself. She gets off on him peeing himself and says that's the most pathetic thing she has seen. Yuki says he is done with the game. He tells Kisaragi that everything in his life has turned into trash. A guard comes in and calls off the torture. Yuki gets a new title, Nice Shower Best Friend Smoker. Kisaragi tells him he was the first ever to accomplish this. He says this game is garbage and logs out telling her he's done. Yuki explains he used to be the track team star runner. His sister cheers him on telling him to do his best. Yuki gets nervous and runs towards the bathroom. Along the way he meets a famous runner. He praises Yuki telling him he's the future of the sport and encourages him. Yuki gets ready to run. He starts at the back then makes his way to the front but he trips and falls. Yuki lies on the ground wetting himself. Everyone stares and laughs at him with Yuki in the middle wanting to unalive himself. Yuki goes to the bathroom and cleans up. His sister comes to him and cheers him on telling him there's a next time. He yells at her telling her there will never be a next time. She runs away crying as the famous runner watches. Yuki apologizes to him but he scolds Yuki because he can't perform under pressure. He tells him he will never be a great runner until he learns to do so. In the morning Yuki has breakfast with his sister. She scolds him for playing the game again and being loud. He tells her he's quitting the game. She says he's pathetic because anything that gets too hard for him he quits and leave. He sits at the table wondering what's her problem. At school the two bullies approach him. He gives them the money before they ask and walks away. His friend intervenes but he says it's not his problem. He goes to Kisaragi's store and returns the game. She asks him why. He tells her he was branded as a criminal, haunted by a ghost and pissed himself. She begins laughing and tells him it's alright. He decides he's gonna sell it to someone else. She tells him no one is gonna buy it, then shows him a video of Kamui. The guy who beat the game. She tells him to go through his walkthrough. He reads the walkthrough and Kamui tells him that he's garbage to need a tutorial and to start working out. A list appears for help. Yuki selects the one for his title. Kamui says he's ducked unless he can outsmart Alicia. Yuki asks for weapons and he says there's a sword in his starting room, then tells him to respawn by fire and leaves. Kisaragi leans on Yuki's back and tells him that she will marry anyone who manages to beat the game and tells him she is in love with him. He pushes her away, defeating the horniness, but she begins to cry and he loses to her sadness. He logs into the game. Mizurisa takes the sheet as a souvenir, calling him a glorious bedwetter. He leaves the dungeon with the guards. They bring him to the mansion of the queen. Inside he finds a man, Tesla, who tells Yuki to sit. Yuki panics because he smells like piss but sits anyway. He asks Tesla why he freed him. Tesla tells him he investigated the crime scene and decided it was an accident and release him. Yuki decides to head back home for the sword. Along the way, he is attacked by the public as they believe the courts are wrong. Kisaragi tells him to buy items but he's broke. She tells him to steal money from an old couple. He refuses, then decides to get a job. He goes to the job center and the woman says he must have paid a lot to beat that murder charge. He gets a job where he has to beat a naked man for pleasure. He declines and the woman throws him out. They decide to go borrow some money from Genji. Kisaragi tells him Yuki escaped because he peed himself. They laugh at him. Genji calls him a piss boy and pushes him. Yuki throws him to the ground and gets ready to punch him. He gets kicked off and Genji tells him it's time for his secret technique, then take out brass knuckles. Yuki starts pulling his hair until Genji's back gives out. Yuki gets ready to finish the fight but Martin appears and scares him into a corner where he lies and shivers. Genji's ghost then appears, and they have a conversation. Kisaragi says the reason he plays so long is that he feels guilty for smoking his friends since they had real emotions. Genji sits on a chair. She tricks him into giving them all his coins since he's drunk. Yuki's title updates to Elder Hunting Best Friend Smoker. Yuki complains since he wasn't the one who robbed him. They go to an item shop. Inside, Yuki sees a cute girl around the counter. She tells him it's $20 for them. He pays and she says because he was a criminal she's charging him $50. He tries to leave but she charges him $10 more for service fees. With some encouragement he pays her. Yuki goes home to get the sword. He picks it up and sees Alicia in the corner. He throws the smoke bomb but it does nothing as he didn't light the fuse. She pulls out a knife and gets ready to penetrate him. Mizurisa comes in to save him, saying no one will lay a hand on her bedwetter. Yuki asks why she is here. She tells them because Tesla cleared him, he is now under the protection of the city. Yuki asks how she found him and she tells him she followed the smell of piss until she reached him. Alicia tries to smoke Yuki. Mizurisa stops her, pushing her back. She prepares to smoke Alicia but she dodges and jumps on the ceiling. Alicia does a crazed bitch monologue and Yuki takes her knife. She jumps down and pulls out more knives. Mizurisa says she is protecting Yuki because she is obsessed with torturing him and only she can harm him. The two crazy women begins to 1v1. Alicia pins her to the floor but gets kicked off. She then cuts Mizurisa cheeks but Mizurisa disarms her. She gets ready to finish Alicia but Alicia kicks her, knocking her out. Alicia does an exorcist and prepares to complete her mission. Yuki remembers Kamui's advice. Kisaragi prepares to punch her in the eyes but Alicia slices at her, then puts on glasses. She gets ready to finish him, but he decides to die happy and grab her boobs. She kicks him in the nuts and falls. Martin holds him on the ground and tells Alicia to end this. She prepares to end him and he shouts that he loves her. She is confused and tells him to stop manipulating her. Yuki says he wants to grow old with her and have her babies. She drops her knives. He tells her he wants to return to how things were. Alicia cries and tells him that it's too late because he smoked her brother. She says the worst thing he did was run away and leave her there alone. She then run away. Kisaragi compliments him on his emotional manipulation. Yuki reflects and realizes that he shouldn't think of them as NPCs anymore, because they have feelings. He heads to a giant tree and calls for Martin. He appears and asks if Yuki came to join him. Yuki apologizes for smoking him and asks him to join his party. It revealed that as kids Yuki and Martin made a promise that nothing will ever separate them. They shake hands and Martin begins to dissolve. Yuki tells him he can't leave because they must stay together. Martin thanks him for remembering, then vanishes. Yuki's title changes to Best Friend Smoker. Kisaragi congratulates him, then a bell suddenly begins ringing. They turn around and see the city on fire. They head down and see everyone confused. Yuki asks a man what happened and gets pushed. He then asks a woman but also gets pushed. They head to a blacksmith and ask what happened. He tells them goblins have sieged the city. Yuki asks to clean his blade. The blacksmith leaves and tell him to clean the blade himself. Yuki cleans his blade as the people outside scream and dies. Yuki decides to go outside to fight with a dull sword. Kisaragi tells him if he acts recklessly and dies something bad will happen. Yuki wonders if he dies in the game will he die in real life. She tells him that's stupid. She says to him if he dies his console will self-destruct. He asks why the developers would do that and she admits that the game is shit. She tells him to log off but he says he wants to see how the goblins look. He peeks through the door and see a goblin preparing to harm a little one. Yuki runs to save her but Kisaragi pulls him back in. Remembering Martin he refuses to let another person pass. The city guard appears to battle the goblin. It moves fast as duck and takes the arms off one. Takes the think capsule off the other then rips both arms off the third. Kisaragi tells him only 2 people have ever defeated a goblin. Kamui and a world-class boxer. Yuki finally changes his pants then decide to help the little one. He gets in a running position and sprints for her. Another goblin suddenly appears in front of him. Yuki puts the little one down preparing to pass, but he sees his sister in the little girl and allows her to run away while he holds the goblins off. The goblin ignores him and go for the little one. The goblin catches up and is about to end her when Yuki suddenly begins moving super fast and saves the girl. The 2 goblins then confront them. Tesla joins the battle and the goblins try to run away but are both one shot. The city guard takes the little one to safety. Yuki gets another title change. Attention whore best friend smoker with a massive god complex. He says it's bullshit. Tesla comes over to Yuki and asks him to join the city guard as a mercenary. Yuki accepts and is told to begin at any time. He says he's done enough for today and logs out of the game. At school, Yuki's friend asks him about the game. He tells him it's still shit. His friends tell him he appears to be in a good mood and is happy he's getting better. Yuki goes home and checks the walkthrough. Kamui tells him that if the city goes under siege he can form a group of 100 NPC with a 5% chance to live, another is digging a hole and hide with a 10% survival, and the last option is to join Tesla in the city guard with a 0.1% chance to survive. Yuki realizes his console has a 99.9% chance of getting fried and panics. He clicks for help on his situation. Kamui laughs at him and tells him the second wave of goblins is coming and he should focus on his training and keeping his mind sharp. Yuki goes to his sister and gives her a pudding cup. She thought he quit but he tells her he's giving it another try, and he's probably gonna scream and get loud. He logs into the game and meets the queen. She runs and hugs him while asking for help. Tesla introduces him along with 2 other mercenaries to the city guards. A guard shows him the way to the dorm. Inside he changes into his uniform then heads to the training ground. The trainer tells him he's dead weight. The trainer challenges him to a 1v1. Yuki swings at the trainer then gets hit in the stomach. He is disarmed and gets hit again. The other guards look down on him for being too weak. The trainer is suddenly defeated by the big mercenary and they cheer him on. At lunch Yuki eats alone. In the room they decide to go to sleep in game. Yuki wakes up and rushes outside realizing he's late. He asks the trainer what to do and he tells him to go practice his swings. The other 2 mercenaries call him the best friend smoker and begin to bully him. A guard calls him over and shows him how to hold a sword. The next day they spar in a 1v1. Yuki fights the strongest guard and rushes at him. He's easily blocked and pokes his stomach. The other guards laugh at him and shame him for being weak. Kisaragi tells him to go to a counselor. The counselor asks him what's the problem. He tells him that he is being bullied. The counselor tells him it's his fault for joining the guards without any skills and tells him to quit and make himself useful somewhere else. A guard sees he's having a hard time and recommends him to go to the church. The nun tells him that his aura is in darkness and she must purify him. She throws a bucket of water on him and tells Yuki he is now cleansed. The next day Yuki continues to get bullied. They ask for cash but he has no money. They tell him to get up and beat him until he surrenders. He continues to beat Yuki until the trainer comes. They tell him they were helping him with his swordsmanship. He believes them and tells them to continue. They threaten the guard who has been helping Yuki and she abandons him. Kisaragi tells him to endure it for one more day. He tells her he wants to not alive and she tells him she's gonna fix everything. The next day Yuki hears the big mercenary complaining he can't find his shoes. They find it in a latrine pit. He then complains that he can't find his sword and they find it in the toilet. He grabs Yuki and the other guards defends him saying it can't be him because he was with them the whole time. They hear a scream and rush to a woman. She tells them her panties are missing and they find them in the big mercenary's bag. She calls him a pervert and the other guards start to scold him. He tells his friend to leave and he calls him an arrogant bootless shit-sorted panty-stealing goblin-faced loser then leave with the other guards. He begins to cry and quit the guards. The trainer tells them to start training. Telsa suddenly shows up with a letter and tells the trainer that it reveals he was the one who bullied the mercenary. Tesla asks if the trainer is competent and they tell him he's been bullying Yuki. Tesla fires him and leaves while the trainer cries. In the night Kisaragi laughs about it. Yuki tells her she is evil for making grown men cry, and he gains a new title, Diabolic Spiteful Best Friend Smoker. Kisaragi says she will tell Yuki why she forced him to play the game. She once met Kamui and asked him out, but he calls her stupid and left. Because of that she swore to see someone else beat the game. Yuki sits outside thinking about Kisaragi. Tesla comes and joins him. He asks Yuki if he wants to leave the city. He says no and Tesla tells him not to panic because he wants to leave too but can't because he must protect the city. Yuki logs off and sees his sister beside him. She says she came to check on him. He tells her she's creepy and she leaves. He checks Kamui guide on what to do next. Kamui tells him to drink bleach and figure it out himself, then turn off the screen. In the game, Tesla tells them 2 more people will be added. It's revealed that it's the crazy bitch brigade as Alicia and Mizurisa comes in. Tesla asks Yuki to patrol the Eastern District with the Psycho Squad. Yuki tells him Alicia will smoke him but he tells him to have faith and leave. Mizurisa tells Yuki they should stay away from Alicia since they have bad blood. A man robs a woman in front of them. Alicia disarms him and throws Yuki the bag to return. He shows the woman the bag and she passes out from shock. They ask the robber why he is stealing in a crisis. He tells them his boss made him do it and tells them where to find him. The Psycho Squad attacks the robbers. Yuki sees Genji and goes to free him. The Psychos defeat all the robbers while they beg Genji for help. He sneaks up behind Yuki and threatens to break his neck. He tells Yuki he's the mastermind and he's trying to make a profit. He tells the Psychos to drop their weapons. Yuki escapes his grasp and tells them he wants to 1v1 Genji. Genji takes out 2 brass knuckles preparing to fight. Alicia speeds past him and one-shots Genji. The guards arrest them and Genji tells him it's better this way since the goblins can't get to him while he's in prison. Tesla praises him for taking down the bandits when the bells suddenly begin to ring. He gets nervous and his belly starts aching. He falls to his knees saying he want to use the bathroom. He relieves himself and sees a goblin perving on him from the ceiling. He screams and Mizurisa comes and saves him. She asks for his sword. She stabs him with it and enjoys his scream. She says he can grab her chest when Alicia comes in and reminds them that their mission is to slay the goblins. While walking, Yuki feels nervous and says he want to use the toilet. Kisaragi encourages him and asks what happened to cause this. He told her what happened at school. She laughs at him and he gets upset, but now he doesn't need to use the bathroom. He gets a new title, Evacuation Best Friend Smoker. Telsa and the goblins have a standoff. They begin fighting but Yuki realizes that Tesla won't win if he fights alone. The Psycho Do come in and begin smoking the goblins. Mizurisa smokes the many goblins while Alicia kidnaps them. The guards tell Tesla some goblins have made it to the Queen's mansion. When they arrive they find the Goblin King sending many people to the afterlife. Tesla explains they fought once before but he was only able to slice out one of his eyes. They begin fighting. Yuki tries to help but he's shaking with fear. Mizurisa tells him to allow the people who can fight to fight. Alicia agrees with her and they decide to fight together. Mizurisa gets one shot. Alicia joins the fight and all of them begin moving faster than the eye can see. A cage arrives containing baby goblins. Tesla strikes the cave and taunts the goblin, then slices him across the chest. He gets ready to finish the Goblin King but Yuki stops him and asks where these baby goblins came from because they look like they have been under the city for years. Tesla finishes the Goblin King and stares at Yuki. He admits he kidnapped them several years ago and the goblin he just smoked was his father. The Queen arrives. She stands beside Tesla and says she breeds the goblins in order to keep the citizen inside the city through fear of them. Tesla explains that goblins are normally peaceful and never attack humans unless they are provoked. Tesla smokes the guards standing around and says everyone who knows the truth must die. Yuki now realizes why Kamui gave this option a 0.1% chance of survival. He gets ready to fight Tesla. Tesla thrusts to impale Yuki but Alicia blocks the strike. She says she saw Martin and he told her to forgive Yuki and keep him safe. She tells him that he made her happy then passes. Tesla tells him he's next and thrusts at him. Yuki dodges his attack. Tesla tries again but this time he blocks it. Yuki strikes back at Tesla beginning to push him back. He swings like a whirlwind, then moves like a DBZ character while Kisaragi cheers him on. He disarms Tesla and gets ready to finish him but his blade breaks on Tesla's armor. Yuki begins to freak out and Tesla gets ready to end him. Yuki meets Martin. He tells him that Alicia has died and apologizes for it. Martin says he will come along with Yuki this time and the broken sword forms back and break Tesla's blade. Yuki gains a new title, Sword Best Friend Smoker User. Yuki smiles at the blade and gets ready to fight Tesla again. Yuki tells him he will win this one and no one can stop him. Tesla thrusts at Yuki. He gets ready to counter but the Queen comes behind and trips him, allowing Tesla to finish him off. The game forcefully logs him out and his console turns into a barbecue. He looks at Kamui walkthrough and is told he is pathetic for getting smoked. Kamui then says it's possible to continue the game but 1 hour before he died. Realizing he can save everybody, Yuki decides that he will take 1 month to train so he's strong enough to beat Tesla. He begins to run and loves the feeling of it. He returns home and his sister smiles, being proud of him. He goes to school and tell the teacher he is researching what he wants to do in the future. He then tells his friend he started running every morning. The bullies ask him for some money. He remembers that Tesla tortured him and screams, scaring the bullies in the process. Yuki sits and waits for Kisaragi. She meets him and gives him the game. He sits and gets ready to play once more. That will be all for today. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.